And speaking of religion, why don't we shift gears to a very interesting story? The Quebec government is tabling a bill to ban prayer in public places. Now, I'll give you my take on this. I think this is about what we've seen, as I said, for almost 2 years ago in the streets of our cities and towns. The Hamasos blocking intersections, saying that they need to pray. And you have a constitutional right in Canada to pray. You do not have a constitutional right to block an intersection. Instead of the government going after the lawbreakers and looking like bigots or Islamophobes or what have you, I think they're saying, oh, it's a blanket ban for everyone. So if there was, say, a Christian person or a Buddhist in a park by themselves praying, that's going to be against the law? Kirk, what say you?
Well, this is the problem with it. It's instead of addressing the actual problem, it's a blanket law to go after everyone involved. So the question is, why should all Canadians' lives be hindered because of this extremist part of our society? So rather than handling them and dealing with them, that's the big issue, is why should it affect everyone else, right? We've seen those Hamas supporters essentially. This is nothing more than a dominance move.
Yep.
When they take over streets, praying, do whatever they want in any street, any part of Canada. The police just sits and watches and protects them. And in Quebec, and specifically, they're praying right in front of Catholic churches. This is a very deliberate thing. What most people need to understand is, in Islam, symbolism is very important. And people in the Middle East, symbolism is extremely important. We don't take it to the same, we don't have the same association with it in the Western world, but when they pray in front of a church, that is huge symbolism into their community, into the world. So this is nothing more than them taking a piss on the wall there, saying this will be ours one day. And we've had, I believe you actually interviewed this gentleman, and I've posted it before, of Muslim who said, listen, the future in Canada is ours. You will have no chance because we have more kids than you. And then what are you going to do? You'll have no choice but to follow Sharia law. So we have a situation if you're short-term versus long-term thinking. And this bill is nothing but a short-term bandage of what the problem is, which is a long-term growth of this extremism in Canada.
Yeah, great points, Kirk. But, you know, Daniel, and I agree with you, this is all about, I guess, Islamic exceptionalism. The idea that we're going to take over your roads, we're going to go into the Eaton Center, we're not going to go away, you know, so violating private property rights. And the authorities do nothing. And again, they are the enablers of this behavior. But switching gears on this topic, Daniel, I think this law is doomed to go down in flames. And I base this on, it's a fascinating case, and I urge our viewers to Google it. It was a 1953 Supreme Court of Canada ruling, and it was against the government of Quebec because the Quebec government had banned the Jehovah's Witnesses in the province. And the ostensible reason why they were banned is they did not seek a permit to distribute their literature on the streets. I mean, it was bogus. It was really a vendetta against them by the then premier of Quebec. But the Supreme said, no. You can't ban a faith. So I see this facing the same scrutiny in the court, maybe even not as far as the Supreme Court of Canada. Maybe it's the Quebec Supreme Court. What say you?
I can't see it. I can't see it going. I mean, from a basic constitutional perspective, it doesn't seem like, as a non-lawyer, it doesn't seem like you can tell Canadians who have the right to practice a religion they can't practice it in public spaces. So I also politically, it seems like something that you kind of put out there and see how it goes, which is sort of how it feels like. And I think that's probably for the best because, I mean, this just doesn't seem like the right answer. I have a huge issue with it from the perspective of, you know, tarring everyone with the same brush. There are people who are obviously using prayer as sort of a tool to their organizational ends, just trespass them. When they go into the Eaton Center, trespass them.
What
Take
a
your cops,
concept.
go, we want to trespass them, get them out of here. Deal with it, address the actual issue. Don't try and make some, because even if they were to pass this law in that hypothetical scenario, what are they going to do? Arrest them all? No, they won't. Like, are they going to stop praying? No, they won't. We will be in the exact same situation, but like, will go, well, we did something. We have the appearance of doing something, but it's not actually going to change anything. And I think that they need to take a different stance towards this, more of a law and order type stance on the existing stuff that could deal with this. Because like you said, you don't have the right to lay down in the middle of the road. There are laws against that in every province. Use them. Stop. It's such a thing with modern politicians. And I see it in the gun thing for sure, obviously, to address a problem that has already got existing laws to prevent it by adding more laws, because that's what politicians do. That's their toolbox. That's what makes them get behind the pulpit and they can go, we've done so, we banned the guns, we fixed the problem, instead of going, well, what we did is actually we have increased the police budget. It's super not sexy. No one cares. Crime rate goes down. No one notices, and they don't get the credit. And I think this is what Lego is really going for in here, is some sort of credit for stopping this, instead of simply going, this is BS. It has to stop. We have the laws already on the books. We're going to deploy those. It would also be way faster. So I think it's a bit silly. I'm curious how this will go down amongst the Catholics and whatnot in Quebec, because I think everyone can kind of read this, and obviously a lot of other religions don't pray in public per se with the frequency, but everyone kind of see themselves, well, what if I want to? So I don't know. It's an interesting issue, though.
But Daniel, I can tell you that in Toronto, the woke city of Toronto and the woke police brass have issued statements about Muslims blocking intersections and stating that it is their constitutional right to pray. And when I reached out to the city, because the police won't respond to us anymore, when I reached out to the city and I said, you're right, they have a constitutional right to pray. There is no constitutional right to block an intersection. Their response was simply this: we stand by our statement. So as they say in Alabama, this dog don't hunt. But Drea, over to you. You're too young to remember, I'm assuming, but back in the early 70s, presumably before you were born, there was this fascinating CBC game show called This Is the Law. And basically they had a panel, and they had an actor, Paul Soules, and he would be doing something very innocuous, and then you'd see a guy dressed as a policeman putting his hand on the shoulder and taking him away, and you had to guess what law he was broken. Like, for example, in Saskatchewan, evidently, it's against the law to paint your ladder. So if we revise that, could you imagine there's you in a Quebec park, and you're deciding to pause and to pray, and suddenly somebody with the Montreal Police Service comes over, puts his hand on your shoulder, takes you away because, well, you're breaking this new you can't pray in public law. Dre, I guess what I'm getting at, this is absurd.
It is absurd. And I agree. I don't think it is going to go through. But if it did, it would be a tragedy for Canada. We are supposed to respect freedom of religion. I believe if Muslims, a lot of them have to pray a handful a day, they should be able to do so peacefully. Again, it comes down to the obstruction. They should not be obstructing or intimidating, churchgoers when they're doing. And the fact that Quebec isn't using the law in place to go ahead and target that, to me, as as a Christian or just a Canadian who has seen how the laws have been used against Christians over a pattern in many ways, especially over the last 5 years, I see that a law like that would end up, oh, we're too scared to use it on the Muslims, but let's go ahead and arrest this street preacher, which, by the way, we're already doing. We're already arresting street preachers. I've counted over 20 of them in the last 5 years for the same things that a lot of protesters are doing, having amplification. Not to mention, Christians are supposed to be like Jesus. What did Jesus do? How did he pray? A lot of times he would go out into the wilderness, which in our case, if you live in an apartment, would be, public crown land. And that's something that I do. I do go into the nature and pray. For that to be illegal seems outrageous. We also have the Falun Gong. They're persecuted for praying in public in China. Now we're going to start doing that out here when they do their beautiful dance prayer or whatever it is. There's just so many examples of how this is wrong. And I do believe that it would be used in a two-tiered way.
Oh, 100%. And with the
David,
Christian street
can
preachers, we just had that story go up about Pastor Jeffrey in Toronto. He doesn't block streets. He doesn't block sidewalks. He doesn't, when the police say don't use your amplifier, he turns it off. He doesn't preach hatred or anything like that. And yet every Sunday in a Jewish neighborhood in Toronto from 11 a.m. Till 1 p.m., the Hamassos gather. They preach genocide, they display swastikas, they dress as Sinwar, and they use amplification. Nothing to see here. How do you take your coffee? Double? Unbelievable, the two-tier policing going on right now.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he take off the amplification and still get arrested?
Yes, and then the police said, you are banned from downtown Toronto. There he is right there, folks, Jeffrey Saposanic. And the police definition of downtown Toronto, I can tell you, it was approximately 90% of the city. So if he's north of the 401, it's okay. Absolutely outrageous. And they don't even have that power. They're just making stuff up.